Hey, welcome back. My name is Manoj, your host, and this is the RareErth podcast. Let the conversations begin. Okay, welcome back. I am so excited to have this guest on the show today. Today's guest is someone I have been familiar for a very long time, but I always wished that, I could get her on my show. And finally, she is on the show. Her name is Anjali. She is the co-founder and chief product officer at 78 Health, a company she and her co-founders are currently building to fix the gaps in the care area, which she herself has lived through. Because in 2019, Anjali was told that she has leukemia. She spent 80% of that year in a hospital, 10 months of chemo, and what came out of that whole experience was just not survival, it was clarity. But that is only one chapter of her life. What I really find fascinating about Anjali is how she thinks. She does not rush to answer. She is very deliberate. She sits with a question, she turns it over, and then she says exactly what she means. You can tell this is someone who lives a intentional life, not as a concept that she talks about, but as something she actually practices. So this conversation is really very wide-ranging because we not only speak about, her roots, where she started, we speak about her cancer journey, and there are a lot of interesting things, some practical tips that she shares in this episode. Because sometimes when our loved ones are dealing with some trouble, we are really unsure about what to say to them and what not to say. And there are some real practical ideas that Anjali shares based on her own experience. And I think that in itself is a great piece from this whole conversation. But apart from that, we speak about all the books that she has been reading, some of the great book recommendations we get here. We speak about music, we speak about spirituality, we speak about 78 Health, the current health tech company that she is involved in, and how patient care is critical and how 78 Health is making a difference in that space. So it's a great conversation. And at the end of the episode, there is a special surprise waiting for you. Trust me, you do not want to miss that. With that, here's Anjali on the RareErth podcast. Enjoy. All right. How are you?
Good. How are you? Finally.
Finally, yeah, I know. Anjali, welcome to the show. Super happy to have you join me for the season 4 of the podcast.
Thank you very much, Manoj. I'm really excited to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think for our audience, it will be pretty interesting for them to know how we kind of got connected and how this conversation even is happening.
Yeah, it's been a journey. And I think you're introducing me to the world of, I guess, audio, sound, podcasts.
So I remember, listening to you on AirChat, and that is where I first, there was that. Otherwise, there was no way that I would have got connected to you. And thanks to Naval, that he had a platform like AirChat, and we got to meet some interesting people. And I heard you first over audio with your voice, and then I was doing something called as mixtapes, and I found a small bit that you narrated in one of the rooms, and took that and created something interesting. And yeah, here we are having the conversation today.
Yeah, I remember that. And I was so excited because, well, that's never happened to me before. And then I listened to what you had created, and it was so beautiful. And it was a new way, I think, that I hadn't heard kind of voice integrated with music that way. And so really interesting.
And how did you come to AirChat? How did you get introduced to the platform?
Yeah, that was serendipity. I was at a small, well, not small, but it was a birthday party here in San Francisco. And I was talking to a gentleman, and we were just chit-chatting, and I don't know, I think we started talking about Clubhouse, and I was just talking about the early days of Clubhouse, etc. And then I was telling him about the reason that I no longer did it. And then I looked at him and I said, "Oh, you know what? My name's Anjali. What's yours?" And he said, "Naval." And I was like, hold
Really?
on. Yeah, I was like, wait a second. I don't know many people with that name. Are you by? And I had no idea what he looked like because on X, I do follow him, of course. And I'd heard him on Clubhouse and became a fan because of just, I mean, you're well aware of this, right? Just his ability to be just crisp whenever he's talking about his thoughts. So anyway, I looked at him and I said, "Are you the Naval?" And he kind of did his little smile because he never gets excited. So he did a little smile. He said yes. And then he was like, "Oh, I have to go." And he goes, "By the way, would you like to join my app?" And I said, "Of course." And so that's how it happened. Yeah.
Oh, that is fascinating. Oh man, like what a way to get connected with the man himself. Okay,
Yeah.
that is cool.
Yeah.
I do remember there was a description in Air Chat where it kind of tells who introduced you,
Yeah.
like right. So I did see the name Naval, and I really wanted the backstory. So I was like poking you to get to hear how did that even happen.
Yeah.
So
That was my, I felt like that was my star sticker
yeah,
that I've
yeah,
had.
yeah.
I was so proud of it. I was like, anyone who's coming to my page is going to see that and be like, what? you know? And he's been a delight ever since. I don't think I've ever seen him again in person, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, thanks to him and the platform, it's lovely. And
How did you get introduced to AirChat?
yeah. So I was running my podcast, right? So in the season 2 of my podcast, I had James from AirChat itself. There are two James on AirChat.
Yeah.
So one of the James Pierce, I think. Yeah. So
Oh,
I
I
had
remember
interviewed.
him. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So James Pierce, he was a guest on my podcast on season 2. And I think he was one of the early adopters of AirChat. And then he reached out to me telling that, hey, there is this interesting platform from Naval. You must check it out. And he sent me an invite. And thanks to him that, like I could make an entry.
Yeah.
Everybody is not as privileged as Naval introducing directly. So
I I agree. But James was, I think I always remember him as one of the other philosophers on the
yeah,
platform.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, so I remember following him as well, and he always had very good things to say. Think thought provoking.
That's right. That's right. A young guy, but then, like, yeah, like one of those enlightened ones, I feel. Yeah. So
Yeah.
very good speaking. The other James also is, I think, the one I think you must have spoken. I think there was some exchanges that you and the other James had. I forget his surname.
Yeah, I forget as well. I think it's been what now? It's been 2 years.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, lovely. So the reason I wanted to have you come on the show is obviously we did have the connect on chat, but then there was something very interesting in your bio which kind of speaks about your journey, and you were open to having conversations about it. And let's go back to your roots. You speak about in your bio you say that roots run deep. What do you mean by that? Like well, what are your roots and what's your growing up story?
That's a good question. And I'm actually really true to that, I think. So my roots are I was born in India, Himachal Pradesh, and then moved here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you familiar?
I've been to Himachal. I went
Oh,
to
okay.
Mandi actually. Yeah, yeah. So
Okay. Yeah.
I definitely love the place. Yeah.
Yeah. Close by.
Okay.
But so was born there. So my roots are from there and then immigrated to the United States, to the Bay Area. Have been here ever since with small stints here and there. But to me, roots are really, it's more than just, like the fact that I was born there. I think it's just staying connected to who I believe I am. So that incorporates my ancestry, the things that my parents have taught me, the things that I've learned about my own culture, my own faith, my own philosophy, all of those things that now I think of as like, no matter where I go, what I do, those are my roots. They help me stay grounded and connected to the guiding principles that I think about in my life and for me. So that's what I mean by my roots. Like it's just a very personal, kind of like a tree, but you're a moving tree and your roots move with you, I mean, those do exist actually. So yeah.
So Anjali, tell me a little bit about your parents. Why did they move to the US, and like what was your dad into? What was your mom doing then?
I love telling the story about it because I think there's so many people that it resonates with, but just a little bit earlier before they immigrated. I mean, so my grandfathers, both on each side, were friends. And so that's how my parents got engaged. And then, so it was an
Okay.
arranged marriage. But my dad has always been a entrepreneur at heart. And so he wanted a couple of years to find himself and figure out what he wanted to do. And once he did, he applied to the United Nations scholarship, got accepted. And then they had a program, I think, in the 1970s where you can apply and they will select from one of thousands of people to come to the US on a special type of green card. I don't know too many details about it anymore. I've heard the story a number of times, so my memory is a little vague, but essentially he came here on a green card then, brought my mom and then us, of course, as kids a year later. And, he has all the stories of landing. And he's like, the first time I came, his port of entry was Chicago. And he was like, the idea of America back then, it was like the streets paved of gold, that kind of image. And so, and everyone's super innocent and there's no crime. I don't know. He had these fantasies of what it would be like. And so he said he landed in Chicago and he said, I just kept my carry-on and my briefcase down, like to the side. And then he said, I wanted to take a look around. And he just left it there and took a look around. And then he came back and it was still there. And I was like,
Wow.
I don't think that would happen anymore, Dad. But yeah, so that was his thing. And then, of course, his choices were either Minnesota or the Bay Area. And, lucky for me, I guess, or I shouldn't say lucky, but Minnesota is a beautiful place. But it was winter. And so then because it's winter, Minnesota compared to the Bay Area during the winter, I'm going to choose the Bay Area. And then my dad was like, it's going to be a little bit, warmer here. And he loved the hills. And then, so they did what all immigrants do. They had jobs, both of them. Growing up, I was a latchkey kid. You go to school, walk, your 30 minutes, come home with your own key, that kind of thing. Babysat when I was 9. So learned how to make food and dinner and iron and all those things, learned to do very early.
Yeah.
So that was how it was growing up. It was a very, I think it was, it was hard at the time just because you don't see that around you. And so you think like, what have I done? Why am I getting, like all these chores? But now, as when you become an adult, you start to appreciate it. I had a newspaper route because my dad was a big believer in earned the value of $1. So he had us get newspaper routes, and that was tough. You wake up at 5 a.m, rain or shine. Sundays were a pain because it's big fat newspapers at the time. I don't know if they have them around anymore, but you had all these advertisements and everything, and on your bike every morning before school. So that was.
And you have siblings? Like,
I do. I have younger siblings. I'm the oldest. I was constantly reminded, you're the oldest. You know how it is, right? You're the oldest, given, compromise. So but there's not much of an age difference. And so I think, growing up, there was a lot of fighting. But we've matured.
And do they also live in the US, or they are in different parts of the world?
No, we've all stuck to California. Surprisingly,
wow.
We've all traveled quite a bit, especially my sister and myself. I think I've been to over 30 countries now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so have traveled a lot, but it's, again, going back to your roots kind of a thing. Like, I feel like my roots, they're just so grounded here. There's so much of California in me, just its environmentalism or the beauty and kind of having everything. You've got your city, you've got your redwoods, you've got wine country, you have the ocean and the beach, and I could go on and on. So it's just, I'm enamored still.
And I would like to know, so what did you go on to study, like, after you finished your schooling?
Yeah, so again, a very similar story to many Indians at that time. I went to study engineering because I was like, I have to prove myself. And unless I'm a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, no one's going to have any respect for me. So I did engineering. After 3 years of engineering, I decided that just wasn't for me. It was just all day of labs, that kind of thing. And I was like, and being one of 2 girls in a class of 60 at that time, luckily, I'm so happy about this, that STEM has become a lot more diverse, but back then it wasn't. And I've always been a very, I think, girly girl in the sense of I grew up as a tomboy, but then in college found my femininity, I guess. So being that way, it was a little bit even more challenging because the boys around you, they teach you. And so then I decided to do CIS because I was like, I've already done a lot of the math and science portion of it. And now computers at the time had started taking off. So I was like, okay, I'll do CIS. And so I did development. I did COBOL, C++. And I'm so thankful. I cannot tell you how happy I am that I did it. because I think it gave
Wow.
me a solid foundation, right, for what was to come. Because then, of course, after that was, the dot-com boom and all of that.
Yeah, and then you do have like a mention on your X bio, like you have a strong inclination towards physics. So where does that come from? How did you get drawn into that?
You've done your homework. I've also been very vocal about some of these things because there's so much a part of my personality. I think anybody that meets me and asks me questions, I mean, if you speak to me for longer than half an hour, you'll see it. But the physics part, of course, had to take it as part of engineering and all of that. Early 20s, I started learning a lot about Vedanta. And a lot of the Vedanta, it talks about the teachings of the universe and the one consciousness, and you're made of the same matter as the dusk in front of you and the sun shining on you, that kind of thing. And one and the same, except just the way that it's arranged. So concepts like that got me interested. But then I read a book called The Dancing Woolly Masters. And it was so beautiful in the way that it explained physics. And granted, it's not like 100% accurate in some things, as I later learned. But I think it was a really good book in getting me to fall in love with physics. It was no longer a subject matter that I had to learn for school. I could actually see why I would want to learn it just for my everyday life and my personal interest. And then after that, then it was just, one book after another. And then, of course, online things started appearing and you start to go down rabbit holes. And then there are podcasts with brilliant physicists. And then it just keeps developing and you keep going deeper and deeper. And you start to see the interconnectedness with everything. I think you're not going to be surprised by this, but David Deutsch and Beginning of Infinity and Fabric of Reality, those type of books, the way that it presents physics is the way that I think of it, right? Is like, to me, it's no different than thinking about life and the chemistry and biology and everyday life. So that's where the interest come in. The more and more older I get, the more and more it starts to really make me feel like anything is possible. And that there is a explanation for everything out there waiting to be discovered. And I think physics is, one of those special sciences that it's fun. I mean, do you like physics, or like what science are you interested in?
I was very much interested in biology, actually. So physics never, I think probably I didn't have a good teacher who explained concepts in a way which appealed to me. So that way I kind of discounted that subject early on. And, much later in the current stage of my life is when I'm being introduced to the ideas about David Deutsch and his kind of books, where I'm at least open to reading up and trying to understand and making sense of the world. Like thanks to people like on Air Chat, where I know I got these ideas about it. There are different ways to look at life. And The Beginning of Infinity, it's a book I haven't completed, to be honest. I started, left it midway multiple times. People speak so much about it that, I thought there must be something to this, like I need to complete the book. The main principle or the main idea from that, I think I did get a sense of that. And it also gives me the essence that actually we can be very optimistic about future, right? Like it may not be a doom and gloom. And, like human is a net positive in that sense to civilization. It's just not that, like we hear the climate crisis, all the negative things that we do to the world. But I think David presents ideas in a way which really illuminates you in a completely new light, right? So
I agree. And AirChat did me that big service of introducing me to David as well as The Beginning of Infinity. I remember, I think Naval had said, take your time with it. And so I went about it very much in a disciplined way of reading only a few pages at a time, really thinking about it. And similar to you, like to me, the message is about optimism. It was this idea, there are problems waiting to be solved. And with each problem that you solve, you gain knowledge to solve more problems. So you should be finding more problems, and it's just going on. And that is a beautiful way to look at life. There isn't anything that it's not given enough time that we can't solve. And I think that's a beautiful thing about being human. I know everyone is concerned about AI, but to me, AI is a tool, and I don't think of it as like what's superior, like that question gets asked sometimes of, are we superior to AI? Is AI superior to us or will be in the future? And I'm like, no. And I think human beings are the greatest creation. And given enough time, there isn't anything that we can't do.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time and resources. And so AI is lucky that way that it can do things a lot faster and maybe, in the future with less resources, not right now. But yeah, so I think we can coexist. And that book really makes it feel, what I believe it's more than just a theory. There's actual logic behind why we should think this way.
Were you always a reader all your life, or did you develop that habit much later? Like, you come across to me somebody who reads quite a bit. So,
Yeah, I was always a reader. In high school, my first ninth grade class, I still remember my English teacher. She gave me a Harlequin novel. there there are romance novels, which is perfect for, a ninth grader, your teenage years. But I would finish like 2 or 3 books a week. And
wow.
this
Okay.
is in addition to my homework and everything. And my mom wouldn't like it because they were romance novels. She was afraid of like, what ideas are you getting? That kind of thing. But, and I told my teacher, and my teacher, I said, are you concerned? She would have me write, by the way, a summary of what the book was about, just so that it was a little bit more than just reading. There was like some reading comprehension going on. And she said, you know what, Anjali, the only thing that really matters to me is that you're reading. And if this is what you want to read right now, I want you to read as much of it as you can. And so that made me become a speed reader. And also, I think really helped me with my reading comprehension because I took English honors classes and my teacher would always comment on the fact that when we're reading various stories, I would understand the underlying messages and things like that. So I think it's helped me a great deal. And that's sadly a skill I think we're beginning to miss now. People don't read as much, especially the younger adults and younger kids.
Yeah. I think even myself included, what I'm noticing lately is that because information is so accessible right now, you don't have to really endure a book. If it is not interesting enough, you pretty much can go to getting exactly the information you want just by asking any LLMs right now. So I'm seeing a diminishing effect of reading on me, like in a sense, I'm not able to sit with a book. And I do not know if it is an attention span problem or is it the author has not done a good enough job for me to be staying invested in the book.
I think it depends on what you're trying to learn from it. I think everyone now feels pressured to have to learn a specific thing. So that makes it a chore. I think if you go about reading in a more kind of like, what am I going to discover and leave it at that, it's less of a chore that way because you're not reading because you're trying to do a book report at the end, right? And there's so many great books, right? The Alchemist, that's one of my favorite books. I give that out to friends and people I like. When I meet you, I'll give you one. Siddhartha is a beautiful book. The Sorrows of Young Werther is a beautifully written. Actually, I've read only the translation, but so beautifully written. And each one of these books that I read, they have something special to offer. And I don't think any Cliff Notes could do them justice because what I'm discovering is so personal, right? As you go through the stories or whatever. I mean, even, Rumi's The 40 Rules of Love is another beautiful book. And there's so much you can just that resonates and feels, I don't know, kind of that awe, that wonder. I can't actually think of anything I've read where I was trying to learn something specific. It was literally like I'm going on a journey. The 3-body problem. I read the trilogy, and it was the same thing. It was like, let me just see where does this take me. It's beautiful.
That's very well put. The idea that you don't approach it with a sense of finishing a task or this is something I need to keep up with because everybody is doing it. I think with a explorative mind, if you just kind of just see like where it goes, if it just pulls you, just go with the flow, and I think that may be a better approach to reading. I think people should pick up books like the way your teacher introduced the idea that it's not about moral policing, whether it's a good book or a bad book. Like, if you love reading, just get started, right? Anyway,
yeah,
right? So,
and do it according to your mood. Also, I think that makes a big difference. I think people feel like if they pick up a book, they have to finish it. No, you don't. I have multiple books that I'm reading at a time because it depends on my mood. I mean, some Sundays I wake up and I'm very much the intellectual. And so I want reading like that as well. That's going to feed my mind in a very specific way. Other times I'm in a poetic mood and I want to read something that has romance of life in it. And so I will read something like that. And sometimes it's sci-fi or like it's a biography. Walter Isaacson does great biographies. I have his Leonardo da Vinci right now that, again, is taking me a while because I only read it certain times. And then there are books that I reread throughout my life. Ever since I read The Alchemist or Siddhartha or The Sorrows of Young Werther, I'll just pick up randomly on one day because there's a thought or a feeling. It's actually probably more of a feeling. I'll have a feeling and I'll be like, you know what? I just want to read it. And so I'll just randomly open up to whatever page and I'll read for as long as it holds my attention or my emotions. And the moment I feel a little like I'm getting distracted, I will stop and I'll move on to whatever, and I think that's been really nice because it doesn't seem like a chore then.
Yeah. Great. Anjali, I want to shift gears and I want to talk about that phase where you went through cancer. So you did have a chapter in your life about surviving leukemia, cancer. Tell me a bit more about it and how old were you when this happened?
Yeah, I mean, this was only 6 years ago. So 2019, I got diagnosed with leukemia, ALL. And it was a shock, of course, because like everybody else, you just don't think that it's going to happen to you, or it's not even anywhere in your universe of what you're thinking about. And so it was very random. And I was septic, which means that it had gotten to a life-threatening stage where when I went to ER because of a headache, they almost sent me home thinking that it was just a migraine. And yeah, they were like, I still remember it was like 2 a.m. in San Francisco. And so they were like, oh, it looks like it might be a migraine. All your tests seem okay. So we're going to give you some medication, see how it works out. But hey, before we send you home, there's one blood test that we're still waiting for. So I was like, okay, if it's a migraine, fine, I'll figure it out. I mean, that in itself I was kind of bummed because knock on wood, I've always been pretty healthy. But yeah, they came back at 3 a.m. and said, we have to take you to ICU. Your white blood count is 217,000 or something like that. And, just to give you a kind of benchmark, a normal person's white blood count is anywhere from 4,000 to 11,000. So mine was 217,000. And actually by the time, in an hour or two, when they got me into ICU, it had gotten up to 237,000. And so they were like, you're lucky to be alive because what ends up happening is you start having organ failure because your blood isn't able to go to your organs with that kind of count. So then that started my journey of battling cancer. I think initially I was just very like, okay, I'm gonna fight it. It's fine. I was more concerned about how my parents would react and kind of worried about them because this was a shock. And so that really bothered me.
Hold on. So when the news was shared with you, was it directly shared with you, or they asked you to call your parents, or how was it delivered to you?
Yeah, it was delivered to me by an intern, I think. I was alone at the time. And
my God, okay.
And they on it, there was no time to do anything. I mean, they were like, you just have to get into ICU. I actually didn't realize how bad it was. And so I looked at them dead serious saying, do I have time to go home and pack a bag? Because I was like, if I'm going to be here, let me get my things. They were like, no, you're going to ICU right away. And then I remember I waited until 6, 7 a.m. And I contacted one of my closest friends, who's a cardiologist. Shout out to Kavita. And then my other close friends, Devika was another one, Vidya, etc. But before them, I actually contacted my sister who lives here in San Francisco also and told her because I was like, look, I don't want to call mom and dad. So, because I don't want to give this news to them over the phone. I said, you go over or you handle this and let them know. And that's how it worked then. And then I was in ICU for a few days where they had to figure out what kind of leukemia it was. And that was the most immediate thing. And that has its own kind of trauma for your body. Because imagine there's a machine cleaning it and then it's sending it back. So there's a lot that can go wrong in that process. And then, then it was 40 days in the hospital starting the chemo with observation all around the clock kind of a thing. And then it was 8 rounds of chemo for the next about 10 months. It was a nightmare. Not gonna lie, it was a nightmare. I went through multiple ICU stays, multiple infections, excruciating pain, just everything you can imagine, like it was probably the most amount of CT scans, MRIs they've ever seen anyone get for one of the nurses when they told me about it. And throughout it, you're just existing. There's no thing called life. I was extremely fortunate because I had my parents with me constantly. I had my sister. I had my closest friends. I had my best friend who flew cross country to be with me a couple of times. I had my boyfriend at the time who was a huge, huge support and strength. But even with all of that, it takes a toll. And so, because of infections, et cetera, you're not eating. And so by the time I left the hospital, I was 86 pounds.
My God. So that translating it to maybe in kgs for reference for India, that maybe 36, 37 kgs maybe, right? I guess.
Yeah. And I'm like 5'3.5", 5'4". And I couldn't walk because most of the time I spent in a hospital bed for those 10 months. And so you lose, your muscle. And in addition to losing your hair, you become skin and bones. And you also lose yourself. Like after a point, probably in month 3, I didn't want to watch TV. I didn't want to read any books. I didn't even really want to talk. All I wanted was someone to hold my hand. That was my only way of feeling like I wasn't going to disappear, was just hold my hand. And my dad would do that constantly. My mom would do it whenever both of them would just look at my face and just give me their hand to hold. But I think for me, the one thing I realized is how important it is to have a purpose. I think for me, I didn't realize it, but my purpose in life really was that I didn't want to leave my parents in their old age. And that kept me going because there were many times where I felt like I'm just exhausted. I don't really know why I'm fighting this. There's no life. I mean, you can't taste anything. You can't watch anything. You're just lying there in bed. You can't even sleep. It's maybe 2-3 hours if you're lucky. Constantly having labs every morning, constant exams. Pain was excruciating, like I said. And then I'd see my mom and dad and I'd be like, nope, I'm going to do another day. I'm going to do another day. And the last 2 months, my mom stayed with me in the hospital around the clock. And that's not easy, let me tell you. I mean, ICU doesn't even have beds in the same room, of course. So she would sleep on the chair. And then in my hospital oncology floor, the room that I had, she would sleep there, but she still had to shower. She would have to use a bathroom outside. It was really hard. And so my dad would drive twice a day from home, trying to bring food to make me eat. But if she wasn't there, actually, I'd be dead. I'm going to say that. Yeah, I know, not to make it sound morbid, but it is true because a couple of times, she saved my life. One, when I had internal bleeding, I was in ER and they can't check on you constantly, right? There's so many things going on, but she caught it. She saw it when I turned and she was like, why is there blood on your bed? And then I lost consciousness and I was gone for like 24 hours, I think. So if she hadn't seen that, who knows when someone would have seen it, right?
Yeah.
Little things like that. So like I've been given a second life for sure. And I think for me, getting out of it, I'm just like, my heart bleeds for everybody who doesn't have what I had.
Yeah.
It was tremendous support.
It's such a blessing that you were surrounded by family and they were they just gave you undivided attention, like unconditional presence, which is incredible. There's no value or there's nothing that you can, put a price for that.
Yeah. And friends, my best friend, Vinita, she managed all my paperwork with my work, etc., with insurance. I just gave it to her. I said, you deal with it. You tell me what I need to do. but you deal with all of that. And so she dealt with all of that. And then my friends would come by either at the hospital or at home. One of my really close inner circle friends, I mean, she also reached out to the hospital because she knew somebody there to make sure that I got the care I needed. It really took a village. Like, it really took all of these people that came together. They had group chats about who was going to come see me when and what I needed, etc. So
Wow.
it was, I mean, but again, it's like, yeah, and I was young still when I had it. So my body was able to take the beating that it did and still come out of it reasonably okay. But I was lucky in so many ways, to be quite honest. I was lucky I was in San Francisco next to one of the best hospitals, I would say, in the US, if not, the world, UCSF. Great care. The most compassionate, loving human beings were taking care of me, doctors, nurses, any member of that staff, including the people that were coming in to clean the rooms. I mean, I say, a blessing, God bless all the time, because what it takes to take care of somebody, and because you're not just curing the disease, right? You're not just killing it. You're also trying to make sure that other things don't get them. That's a big thing with your immunity.
Yeah.
But people don't have that, and it's sad. And that's something that I came out of it going, I want to be somebody that changes healthcare.
Yeah.
For the better. I mean, there are a lot of great things about it, of course, which is why I'm sitting here talking to you, but there's also a lot of gaps still. I think there are a lot of challenges.
So Anjali, so two questions as a follow-up to that. One is, when you were in the hospital for such a long time, were there other similar patients that you happen to meet or you happen to notice? Were there cases which are worse than yours, and it gave you some degree of comfort that, hey, you know what, I'm not that bad? Like, how did you kind of make sense of the situation with yourself? Did you have some kind of a narrative or a story which helped you then?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I think I haven't thought too much about it, but I would say yes. One thing, most of the people on the oncology floor were much older than me. They were in their 70s, that kind of thing. So they definitely had way more issues than I did, I think, because you would hear people getting busy. And also, I myself would try not to be too much of a burden for my nurses, because I knew they had a couple of other people that they had to take care of who were much older than me. And then I think for me, going through it, my faith helped me a lot. My faith in this, and this is, I think, going back to Vedanta, and this is what I talk about, like when I say my roots, this understanding that you're not special. It's not, hey, why me? Why did I get cancer? Of course, why not is kind of the way I approached it. There are 8 billion people. Of course, why not? Why shouldn't it be me? In the world, there has to be balance. And if there are healthy people, there has to be sick people too, because that's the way the universe works. And if there are healthy people out there, then it's my turn to be sick. And so it's okay. And if there is a reason that I need to exist or live or do something with my life, then I will. I'll survive this. And if there isn't, that's okay, because it's my time to go. And if I'm going, then it makes me happy, because that makes me happy in the sense, not like I want to go, but it makes me happy. That means that maybe someone can survive who is needed in the world. Maybe it's a mother. Maybe it's a small child, that kind of thing. So I was like, I would rather take their spot than if that's how the universe works. And so that's what was going on in my mind. And I kept thinking my only reason for wanting to stay on was I didn't want my parents to suffer the loss of a child. And that was it. So I was like, that's comparatively not, as great of a reason as a mother.
Yeah.
So that helped me a lot, because then I stopped fearing anything. There was not a fear necessarily of leaving too much. It's kind of complicated, because of course, sometimes I was just like, I don't want to, because I'd see my mom and dad. But then other times when I was alone, I'd be like, okay, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And I would open my palms and I would just be like, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm at my kind of the rope's end, and I can't eat. I can't do anything. diarrhea in bed, all the nasty little things that happen. And then, all right, it's in your hands, God or universal source, your hands, you give me the strength and you give me whatever it is I need right through the ether. I believe in the cosmos and I believe that whatever I need through osmosis, I can get. That was my faith. That's really my faith. And that's what I would do. I would open my palms and I'd say a prayer and just believe it and be like, okay, this is, maybe I got lucky and it worked, or it's just a coincidence. I don't know. But yeah, I managed to survive.
Everybody's journey, and especially somebody dealing with that kind of a health crisis, they'll have to make a peace with themselves at some point, right? Like they have to make sense of the situation, and whatever served you then, so be it, because it may not be the case with someone else, but then, this is your story, right?
Yeah, I think everyone has their own journey and it's very individual to them. I did have what I felt like were near-death experiences where you feel like there's definitely something soothing you. And it's like a soft, light lullaby is the way I would describe it, that makes you feel like you can just let go.
Yeah.
And I had like 2 or 3 of those, and I was very happy and at peace in those moments. But again, the thought of my mom and dad would always make me say no, like, nope. And then I'd like open my eyes, that kind of thing. So yeah.
When people have such close encounters with like a near-death experience, they say they come with a deep sense of clarity about life. Because you suddenly know what is important, like end of the day, right? All the sounds and noise around what we should be doing, what we are busy with, everything just disappears. And, there is a total clarity. Like you mentioned about your purpose, right? So what was that clarity moment for you?
I did appreciate the fact that the cliche is there for a reason, because I did have one. It wasn't necessarily the purpose, because I think the purpose was born more out of me wanting to do something. But I did get the clarity that I no longer will be afraid, period. Nothing is going to make me afraid. There's no reason to be afraid. And again, it's this whole thing of go ahead and try. Go ahead and do things. If you're scared, do it anyway kind of philosophy. That really became crystal clear that from now on, I'm not letting anyone scare me. I'm also not going to belittle myself. I think there's a tendency sometimes, especially growing up in, the Indian culture, the way that I did, this tendency to overcompensate for making sure you don't have an ego. And so you tend to self-deprecate yourself a little bit more. I did have a tendency to do that. And so I stopped overcompensating. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be egotistical, but I'm also not going to belittle myself anymore either. And I think take up space. It's okay to take up space.
That's beautiful. I think you kind of come from a place of feeling more empowered with that kind of an understanding. Okay. What is the question people are afraid to ask, but they really should?
Really good question. Where are they afraid to ask? I wish I knew. I honestly can't think of anything. Maybe people ask, are you scared? But they probably think, yeah, of course you're scared. I don't know. I think people are afraid of making people relive it, so they tend not to want to bring it up because they feel like, oh no, I'm. It's kind of like touching a wound. You're bringing up old memories that might hurt you. So there is a tendency to be that way. There's also, I think, many people feel like, what are they going to say? So you have leukemia, and it's like, how do you respond to that? Do you act interested and curious? Do you act kind of like, oh, I'm so sorry, and then you're stuck, because now how do you move on from that into a normal conversation? So there is that. But I will say, one thing that people should not do is tell people who are going through things like that to be strong.
Tell me more. Why would you say that?
Because you get told that by literally everybody. Okay. Every single person is telling you, be strong, be positive, blah, 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 and it's not their fault, and they're doing it with good intentions. But as the one person who's getting it from everybody, you get so exhausted by being told that. And it's just like, what do you want me to do? I'm trying. I already know I need to be strong. But you know what? That is not what I want you to be telling me. I just want you to be asking me, would I like more juice? Or what kind of juice would I like? Like ask me those things. Tell me those things. Tell me something that you think would take my mind off the pain, maybe. Don't tell me to be strong about the pain. I already know I should be strong. I'm already ashamed that I'm crying because of the pain. So when you tell me to be strong, it just makes me feel like I'm not doing enough. So yeah, the being strong, be positive. Also, don't say be positive. Instead, show them things to make them feel positive, right? Or do things to make them feel positive, or talk about things that are positive, but don't tell them what to do. And if they don't want to do something, I had both things happen in my journey, which is one, my mom was extremely tolerant and patient with me. And if I didn't feel like eating something, she would be like, that's fine. And this is, mind you, parents who I've grown up with telling me you do not waste a single grain of rice, right? But,
Yeah.
I wasted because I just started crying. I couldn't swallow it. I just couldn't. It was the evil thing that they were trying to make me do by eating something that I didn't want. And so, but she would be like, no, that's okay, beta, and she would take it away. On the other hand, there was another voice in my group that would be like, oh, you should be doing your own dishes. You should be making your own egg whites, And I would just be like, I don't even have the energy to stand. And this person would be like, well, so and so say that other cancer patients are doing all these things, and look at you. You're just sitting there and like being waited on. And that was really annoying to me because I think everyone has that different journey. So if you see someone experiencing things, don't be that way. You have to support them to the capacity that they have. Not everyone is going to write a book while they're going through cancer. Not everyone's going to be doing marathons. Like everyone's journey is very different, and how they're feeling and how their body copes with it is very different. It's
Thank you, Anjali,
my
for
message.
no, sure. Like I know that sometimes getting into a deeper dive in this specific area again makes you relive those things. So thank you for really sharing that bit. And well put. Many are really unsure, as you said earlier, that when they're sitting with somebody who is dealing with something, they really do not know what to say, how to really have a conversation, and they just go with whatever conventionally people do, and then just say, "Be positive, be strong." But I think you address that by just telling, just don't say that. Do other things. And like people, when they come out of something like this, they have this mission to do something in that space specifically. Now you are more of a product person. You currently are with 78 Health. How did you come into this building something in the tech space? And are you driven because of your own personal journey, or is it because you really see a great opportunity in that space and there's a lot going on there? How did you come to tech, especially in the bioscience, I think, right, in that space?
I have been in tech my entire career, so that's a very comfortable space for me. And I've done every single role imaginable in software development, everything from development to sales in multiple industries. Retail is the only industry I haven't worked in. But because of that background, I'm very comfortable in it. Having had, right before I got the cancer, I was already starting to wonder, like, what do I do with this? I've now, at that time, it was 17 plus years of experience. You want to do something more. But I hadn't really figured out what really resonates. I'd worked in healthcare before as part of my career. And I'd started thinking about it because I was like, I know we're an aging population, things like that. I myself am getting to an age where chronic conditions start to happen, all of this thoughts. And then, of course, cancer happens. And then you see the gaps in just everything from technology to the lack of continuity, especially between being at the hospital and then being at home. I felt like there was a lot of boxes that were checked, but really not developed. So yes, you have a caseworker, but it's actually more burdensome because there's no continuity. And every time you get a caseworker, you're rehashing all your history. With my nurses, I had to be such a strong advocate for myself because my parents are elderly. So a lot of the things that were talked about or done, it wasn't something that I wanted to burden them with. So I took that on because I was like, I'm the person 24/7 with me. And there would be times where nurses would come in and want to give me fluid. And I'd be like, nope, I can't take any more fluid. I'll get fluid in my lungs. So please check with the doctor. And they'd be like, oh yeah, you're right. So all of this happened multiple times, ER, oncology, etc. And it wasn't because of the nurses or the people taking care of you. It's because the system isn't set up to support them. And so you're seeing all of this. And of course, me with my consulting hat on and everything else, thinking about, how we can fix things. I got out of it thinking if I survive this, I want to make changes. Also because I saw so many people who didn't have the kind of care that I did, right? So I was lucky in that I was young enough to be an advocate for myself. But what about the folks that aren't, and aren't able to do that? So I was like, okay, these are some things I want to fix. And I want to do something for caregivers.
Did you see this gap when you were in the hospital dealing with the thing? Did you identify, hey, you know what, there is such a massive gap happening? Did you notice that?
Exactly right. And that is what happened, right? And it started week 1 that I was there. I remember actually reaching out to my boss at the time and saying, hey, do we have an account at UCSF? Because I have some ideas of how we can help them. And they were like,
Really?
oh, that's
Okay.
great. And then, because in my mind, I was like, okay, I can handle this, whatever's been going on so far. So while I'm here, I'll do some work kind of a thing. I mean, little did I know, but turns out I wasn't able to do that because you can't be working, when you're in that situation. So I started taking notes, and then it was just one of those things of like constantly seeing all the ways that there's not enough of a support for all the nurses and all the healthcare professionals in what they're doing. And there's not enough support for caretakers. And at that time, mind you, this is 2019, information that was out there, like you would get told, hey, there are multiple forums you can go look at to understand how to navigate your journey here, what things you might want to eat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But those forums were horrible. I mean, like you would log on and it would just be like blogs of people sharing their journeys. And maybe here and there you might find some useful information. So I came out of it. I was like, when I come out of this, I want to build something for a people that is very actionable.
Yeah.
And there was no continuity of care. Like you're at the hospital, then you're at home for like a week. And the caseworker that you're assigned, sometimes it's the same one, sometimes it's a different one, and you're having to tell them your entire history again. So being that advocate for yourself is so important. And I saw that a lot of people weren't able to do that as I was, because again, my career was tech. I was still young. It was a very different scenario. So yeah, I did. I wanted to get into healthcare afterwards. I was like, I want to fix things for caregivers because there's not enough support for caregivers.
Yeah.
And there's not enough support for people who are going through illnesses that is tangible. They don't need the rah, like you can do it. I mean, sorry, I shouldn't say they don't need. Yes, they need that. But what they really need is very practical things like things like, you know what, if you're going through chemo on week 3, you're going to start losing your taste buds. And so switch to a plastic spoon because a metal spoon is going to make everything taste horrible. Switch to different types of maybe a Gatorade. Orange Gatorade is really good because after a certain point, even water starts to taste metallic. And it was all this information maybe could have been out there somewhere on the web, right? Because I was definitely, obviously not the first person to go through leukemia and have such a horrible experience, but it just wasn't organized in a way that would have been helpful. Or even clothing, special needs. I had a PICC line and you can't take off your top once you have a PICC line without introducing huge amounts of risk for infection. So where's the clothing so that I can wear different things on different days without having to do that? Simple little things like that. So that was my idea was, have a marketplace for things like that, have a place where it's very organized according to the chronic illness you have or whatever disease. That's very matter of fact of like, here's your journey. People have gone through this and this is what we've learned from it. And so this is what you can expect and we're going to hold your hand. So did one startup for caregivers for older adults because I felt like they're the ones. It's kind of a neglected group. We'll come up with all sorts of social apps and things like that. But, how many people are thinking about our older adults and how to improve their quality of life and how to ensure that they can live independently, right? So many of them don't want to be a burden on their children or society or whatever, they want to be independent and they're still useful human beings.
Yeah,
It's not like
absolutely.
just because you're a certain age, all of a sudden you can't do things. They have so much to give, so much to offer and produce. So that was the idea. It was just not the right timing. So it was difficult to get ahead with it. And then decided to go back to work for a couple of years at my employer. And then last year I joined 78 Health because
So what is the problem that 78 Health is trying to solve?
yeah, so the main problem is how do you essentially equip people to take control of their health in between doctor visits? Going back to that whole continuity of care that I was talking about, because that continuity of care is so important, people will leave the doctor's office with good intentions of following a certain care plan or program that the doctor wants them on for their health, or whether it's to prevent something from getting worse, whether it's to cure something, or whether it's just part of the treatment, right? Like in my case with my cancer. But you leave and then life takes over. You're out of compliance. You don't adhere. You have no idea what's going on with your body. You think you're doing better than you actually are. Like you think, it's like your diet should be this. And you're like, oh yeah, I've been following that. No, because if you had logged it properly, you'd realize how off you are, right? So 78 Health, it's a platform fully powered by AI, of course. And we use agentic AI for our app. It's called Primary. You can actually find us on the Google and Apple store. We've launched and we're doing pilots. But the idea is with Primary, you can do that continuity of care now. You can manage your health condition. You can manage your diet. It integrates with your wearables and your labs. So it can tell you what to fix. And you can follow programs. We have a couple of different paths that you can use. You can either be a patient of a physician. So we provide primary care physicians and other healthcare professionals or anyone that's licensed with a platform to essentially create and publish their own programs. So these programs are meant to be care plans or any type of scheduled program that a patient or whoever their client is needs to follow towards a specific goal. It could be a health goal. It could be something for preventing a chronic illness from getting worse. It could be to do even like a colonoscopy prep, right? It could be for weight loss. It could be for better sleep. It could be to avoid fatty liver disease, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases. But it gives you everything on the palm of your hand, right? Like what's going on because you're integrating with your wearables and your labs, which you can upload as often as you'd like. You can see exactly what's going on. Okay, so what are my patterns? And now you have graphs and your physician has the same. So your physician will assign you the program and now they can see how are you actually doing. You can log your food. You just, take a picture and boom, and you'll like calculate how much protein you've consumed, how much more you still need to. It'll give you alerts, give you reminders for medicine. But the idea is, as you're probably getting, is you're taking control of your health during those visits so that you yourself can see, are you making progress? Are you actually doing the things that you're supposed to be doing? And it does it, by the way, in a way, creates these plans with the physician. It's kind of like co-authored in a way that's habit forming because the idea isn't, hey, we're done, like 2 weeks or 3 months or whatever it is. The idea is that now you're developing better habits because you're beginning to understand your health better, right? You can see when does my blood sugar, because it integrates with a CGM monitor, for example. You can see when is my blood sugar spiking? It's because I had this today and or maybe I ate at a certain time, or, what's going on with your stress, all of these factors. And then your physician has that same thing. So when you go for that next appointment, they already know. It's like, okay, here's a visual graph. They can see what's going on. Maybe you were on a certain medication that you just started, and that's all of a sudden when things went erratic. That information is not there currently. And a lot of other solutions that are doing this, they don't have the physician in the loop. So we have the physician in the loop. And that's the idea is we want to use AI as a tool to make it powerful in the palm of your hand and on the platform. But we very much want it to be trusted. And so the physicians are the people who have the expertise and know their patients. So we want them to be the ones ultimately to create the programs and monitor it and have those discussions with their patients.
Thanks for sharing that current role that you're involved in and how this is shaping up the maybe preventive care also in that sense. So,
Yeah.
but there are companies like Amazon, OpenAI, and Google. All of them are launching in the AI health product space as well. So as a startup, how do you think about building in a space where the giants have just arrived? They definitely have a lot of capital and
Yeah.
they really have the connects. So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most common question, right? And I think everyone gets asked that. The answer is kind of layered. So, number one, there's 8 billion people. There's more than enough room for all of us. We're a global solution. Right now, we've launched in the US market and we're also launched in the India market, but we have plans for everywhere else because it is meant to be a global healthcare marketplace and
Okay.
platform. So we think there's space for all of us, right? Yeah, and it really is. It's kind of like different cuisines, right? It's like
Yeah.
saying, okay, why there's McDonald's, why is there a Burger King? Well, that's because people have different preferences and how they like their
Right.
burgers, right? Or fries. And so it's no different than that. And I think our differentiation is, like I said, the position in the loop and the way that we're going about it and the fact that it is agentic AI. I mean, our CEO is, one of the lead architect for the Tesla data platform. So he has a really deep understanding of data and the way to organize it and how to apply AI. So I think that's one of our secret sauces is Sanjay, and then we've got a great team. And of course, that makes a big difference, I think, in terms of being a differentiation, because it's more than just technology, right? Technology is a tool. And so at the end of the day, what matters are the people behind the tool, right? How do they think? Why are they doing what they're doing? What's their approach, their morals, their values? How do they care? I think the care piece is really important. That's a big differentiation for us, is the care piece. We want to bring care into everything that we're doing. We're HIPAA compliant, of course. So data privacy is a big thing for us. With the larger companies, they may or may not be that way. Honestly, if you start to look at everybody and start to go, oh, they're doing this and they're doing that, no one's ever going to start anything. It's like the first time Ford had a car, there would be no other cars. So it's like, you can't be that way. That it doesn't make sense to be that way. I think everyone has solutions that they focus on. And over a period of time, you find your space, what makes you special. And we're finding what makes us special. At the end of the day, our focus is on doing what we've set out to do and not paying attention to the noise around us. That doesn't mean that we're not aware of the competition and we're not aware of the things that we have to do in order to be competitive. I think you can be competitive without being scared about your competition. Right. That's the way that all of us feel. And so, I mean, it's like, the more the merrier. Let's just make sure that everyone's taken care of. We want to put primary in the hands of everybody who doesn't have access to all the different types of healthcare options out there. So, does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, you did. In fact, this part of the podcast has been sponsored by 78 Health,
I mean, I'm living and breathing it every day. So it's hard for me to stop talking about it. And I'm also very excited because, going back to Manoj, the question that you said earlier about having purpose, 78 Health has given me that purpose of, walking the talk. I can talk all day about how I care and what I want to do for people that didn't have or don't have all the blessings that I do in my life, but that doesn't do much. And so I was like, okay, I want to apply it. And so
makes sense. Yeah.
This is what I do every day.
Having nearly died, then spent years building something to help people stay healthy, has your definition of health changed? Like, what does healthy mean to you now? That is different from before.
It has not changed from a cerebral standpoint. Growing up, again, my parents have, my dad especially used to make us do like calisthenics.
Nice. Okay.
We would have to do that. And I've grown up a tomboy. Even in high school, I still remember I was like, I have to get an A in physical education and PE. I don't care about the other A's, but that is an A I have to get. Because I was like, I am in control of my body. I am healthy. I can do whatever. So it's always been there. And I've always been on the leading edge, the trends on taking care, eating right, living right, getting exercise. And I think that did me a great service. My doctor even said it. And actually in my medical reports, the notes that they take, when I went into ICU that first time, they actually had to write in my notes that the patient looks much younger than her age because the doctors were walking in and walking right out because they thought they had the wrong person. So, and even now when I still see my oncologist for checkups because I still have to get tested to make sure it hasn't come back. Knock on wood, God's grace, it hasn't. But yeah, I mean, it's like he has said, you're in really good condition, all things considered. I think that proved why it was so important. And now the way I look at it is before I would not eat if I got upset with somebody, right? Like you're in a relationship and I would be like upset with the person and you know what, I'm so irritated and I would not eat. And I don't know why, but that was my way of getting back at them. I don't know what it was. Now I don't do stupid stuff like that. Like, why am I punishing my body because somebody else is making me feel bad? You know what I mean? I'm like, or I would not sleep because someone upset me. And I'm like, why am I letting them ruin my sleep? So that has changed. I don't let things come in between me and my health anymore.
Well said. Well said. I want to ask you, there were so many different people in your life who came at different seasons, right? So is there a person who shaped your path in a meaningful way? Could be a mentor, a doctor, or a colleague, family member, anybody. You think about them, they really influenced you to think differently about life.
It's interesting because if you had asked me that 7 years ago, I might not have been able to say a whole lot. But now I think I really believe it's my mom and dad because I've come to understand where I get some of my best traits from, I guess, my best qualities. And it really is them, their perseverance, their compassion, their willingness to be people who are okay with not being in the spotlight, but still making a difference. Little things like that. That's probably the biggest influence on my life. And then I would say Vivekanand, even though I never met him. Vivekanand, definitely, because I started reading about him when I was, 18. And it shaped a lot of my philosophy about life.
You mean Swami Vivekanand, right?
Yeah, Swami Vivekanand. Yeah. Shaped a lot of my philosophy of life, of live and let live. And it's all about intention. Nothing is black and white. Actually, there's a lot of parallels that I found in some of his teachings and when I read Beginning of Infinity, believe it or not.
Tell me more.
It's something that you said also, right? This whole thing about how special human beings are and how much power we actually have and how we should feel empowered. Vivekanand said the same things, and he was also a big optimist. And he did want every person to essentially be a lion, like roar, like make yourself known, your presence known, do the things that you want to do. Don't let people try to dampen your spark, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that, especially because you grow up listening to so many different faiths, including often, even in India, telling you don't do this or don't do that because it's bad.
Yeah.
Without explaining why is it really bad? Why is eating meat bad? Some people might say it, and Vivekanand would say eating meat is not bad. It's the intention with which you do it. Are you killing an animal to eat it for nutrition, or are you killing it for sport? So the intentions are different, and that's how you should look at things. So yeah, I think Vivekananda, and now of course David Deutsch, because of Beginning of Infinity, it keeps popping up everywhere that I look. Anybody that's saying something smart, I'm like, aha, I know where you got that from.
So you obviously have read like a whole range of books, and you obviously have stated, the impact of David Deutsch in the recent times. Is there a book that you keep revisiting back again and again, or is there a book which definitely impacted you quite a bit?
Yeah, 2. Siddhartha. That's the first one because he goes on a long journey. I'm not going to do no spoilers here. But he goes on a long journey, and ultimately, what he realizes at the end is what we all realize at the end, I think. I certainly did. And it's one of those books I revisit here and there. And then The Alchemist. The Alchemist, I feel like, is probably the truest in terms of really bringing that whole, this empowerment feeling alive in me. So whenever I start to feel like, oh God, I don't know what to do, I just pick it up and I open a page and start reading. And by the time I'm done, might be a chapter, might be 3, maybe just even 2 pages, I feel like I can do this. I can do this. Like I can will things to happen. I can will it to manifest. The universe is here for me. It's like, it's that kind of thing. And in those moments, I have to remind myself, no, I'm not special. But if you understand the secret, right, which is, the universe is here for you. It is nothing but your thoughts going out and creating the butterfly effect to bring the manifestations of whatever it is that you want. I mean, of course, it's not that simple, maybe, but I want to believe that it makes a difference. I mean, look at how we found each other. I also, this whole thing of serendipity that keeps coming up in my life as a pattern, and so I believe that. And any of those 2 books.
Okay, cool. Are you into music? Do you enjoy any specific artist or like any specific kind of music? I'd love to know that.
Yeah, your music.
Thank you.
I do enjoy your music, and not only because I'm in one of your mixtapes, but I do. I genuinely appreciate what you create.
You have good taste.
I've been told. I am all over the place. I just love music. Music is soul food for me. Every kind of music. It doesn't matter. All sorts of singers. Indian music, of course, especially the old Kishore Kumar, Mohammed Rafi. Going back even as far as like Mukesh and all of that. Sonu Nigam probably in the more modern era. For Indian music, love Indian classical music. Used to go to so many concerts here in the Bay Area. We were lucky. No, I never. That's been a regret in my life, and I hope before I die, I learn to play the piano. Do you play an instrument?
I know I produce music digitally, but I don't play any instrument yet.
I tried learning the guitar, but was hopeless because I think I need a tutor. But I would love to be able to. I think it's such an amazing thing to be able to just, you know what I mean? Just create sound and then have people enjoy it around you. But I love, old like American classics. I love the Eagles. I probably know most of their songs. Neil Diamond, of course.
Okay.
And then I love all the same stuff that everybody else loves. I am not that different. I love country music. In fact, I went to Nashville once and I remember going into a country bar there and asking for them to play a George Strait song called The Chair. The guy that was playing was just so grateful that someone asked for an old country music song. Yeah, so stuff like that. I mean, what do you like other than your own?
Actually, I enjoy all the Hindi music. The regular stuff I enjoy, but I also enjoy quite a bit of world music. It's just ambient sounds. So I really enjoy Deep Forest, which is an interesting mix. I used to like Enigma. I used to like Yanni.
Oh, yeah.
And I think those genre of music is very interesting to me. Hans Zimmer, yes.
Yeah.
And I like Qawwalis. I like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. So so my Spotify playlist has an interesting mix of all these artists, and based on the mood.
Same. It's funny because sometimes my playlist will be playing and there'll be like a Telugu song. And then my friend will be like, wait, you don't even understand. I said, I don't need to.
We don't have to,
French music, because I love French. There's Japanese music.
Right. All right. I am moving to the last segment of our podcast, which is the rapid fire round.
Yeah.
So in rapid fire round, I ask you a series of questions and you need to answer it rapidly. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
What is the smell that takes you back to being a kid?
It's either rice cooking, the aroma of basmati rice, or like probably how the smell of wet sidewalk. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's a word. I know there's a word for the smell of wet earth, but the smell of wet sidewalk because there were so many times I used to walk.
The smell of sidewalk. No, I do not know. Wet sidewalk. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't either. But there's a specific type of scent that comes from cement.
Interesting.
After rain.
Okay.
I know there's one for earth and dirt and everything, but there's also one from cement. It's kind of like a mixture. And so that always just takes me back to when I was a kid playing outside in the rain.
You know what? Now this is gonna bring my focus to the next time I'm gonna experience that. Just gonna pay attention to what was that smell like. Okay. All right. You're at a dinner party with, let's say, 5 people, living or dead, but you can only listen. You can't speak. Who are you eavesdropping on?
Vivekananda, of course. And recently, I got to learn more about Genghis Khan.
Okay.
And he seems fascinating to me. And so I think, him.
What aspect of him fascinates you?
Just the man himself, his philosophy on life, like what went through his head, why he did the things that he did, and what he thought about the future and everything. I mean, it's actually very interesting if anyone's curious about history. It's a good, I listened to it on a podcast, but I've been meaning to pick up a biography and read more. He seems really interesting. He seems like the type of person you'd invite to a dinner party, and really just would have interesting things to say that might still be very relevant to where we are today.
Interesting. Okay. What's the worst medical advice you ever received from a professional?
Worst medical advice? That if I didn't make more of an effort to walk every day, I would not be walking for a year.
When was this? Give me the context.
When I was in the hospital. When I was at my 86 pounds, I wasn't able to stand much. I couldn't walk without holding someone's hand. And it was just me just going, I don't want to put my body through something it doesn't want to do. I was a big believer in just listening to my body for good or bad. But I just felt like it had been through such hell. I was like, I don't feel like walking. I don't want to walk. And they were doing the right thing. I mean, they were saying the things that their expertise told them to say. But this one woman came in, she was a therapist, a physical therapist, and she complained about me because of my bedside manner. Because she was trying to make small talk and ask me all these questions. And this is towards the end of my journey, right? And I was just like, I had a really bad night, a really bad morning. And I was like, lady, I don't want your small talk, Just ask me the questions and let's get over with it. So she didn't appreciate me being so, dry. She complained about me, and then she's the one that told me that, you know what, if you don't walk today, I don't see you walking for a year. And I didn't listen to it. I was like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And, granted, when I got out, I did need some help initially, thanks to, my parents and my boyfriend at the time. They helped hold my hand. But within a month, I was back on the hills.
Lovely. Okay.
So,
following up on the same theme, what is something your body taught you that your mind refused to believe?
Resilience. I mean, I don't know what the inside of me looks like. I'm just going to say that. I'm sure the chemo, because I had very aggressive chemo, I had all sorts of meds, antibiotics, everything, right, pumped into me. It takes a toll. It eats away at your bones. It eats away at all sorts of things. Does all sorts of damage, maybe. But I was just shocked at my recovery, how it happened, how my body just seemed to bounce back, at least externally. It was a revelation to me because I didn't expect it. I was just, how am I ever going to go from where I was and do the things that I wanted to do? That's what would come to mind every day. And then, the first couple of years, you go through 103 fevers, you go through infections, you're constantly going to ER kind of a thing. And my case was no different. And there were fears of it coming back or fears of other infections. I was like, that might not have killed me, but I'm not done yet. And who knows what might kill me now. But it was just amazing. It was just like, wow. And I'm not doing anything special. I didn't do any supplements, right? I wasn't doing the Brian Johnson,
blueprint
longevity stuff or anything. I ate when I was hungry. I slept as much as I could, which wasn't a whole lot. I mean, I was waking up 4 or 5 times a night for a few years. But it just, man, it bounces back. If you take care of it, it will take care of you. And honestly, like with 78 Health, I know I'm bringing that up again, but it really is a big component of the way the plans are, is like that daily adherence to things, whether it's eating something or doing something. And my dad was a big believer in moderation and just doing things in moderation. You can have fun, just do it in moderation. But your body is a beautiful, beautiful machine. You treat it right, it will reward you tenfold. You don't have to be worried that it's too late. It is never too late. You can get started today and see results quickly.
Wonderful, wonderful. What is a book everyone praises that you secretly found overrated?
Sapiens.
All right. Okay. That's a very well established name and the title.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me,
Yeah.
why do you think it's overrated?
I think because the way people say it, they put it on the same level as like a beginning of infinity level. And to me, it wasn't. And so I just feel like, I'm not saying it's not a good book. It is. There's another one that I'll add, and, Mr. Jobs up there, don't hate me, but the autobiography of a yogi. I felt,
okay. That's one of the first times I'm hearing that name getting mentioned in this category. Okay, tell me why.
yeah, I don't hate it, mind you. I don't hate it.
Yeah, no,
but I
overrated.
just
Yeah,
don't. I think they're overrated.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of sensationalism around it. And also, I think a lot of people who really like it haven't been exposed or haven't read other things, because I have. I mean, I've read like the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna Paraman's. And having read that long ago and having read some of the teachings of Swami Vivekananda, I just feel like, okay, like this was okay, like I think if I had to recommend a book, I'd recommend Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa's Gospel, the Gospel.
Yeah.
I would recommend reading some of Vivekananda's stuff way, way more. Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting response. Okay, what's a question you ask yourself regularly that you never fully get answers to?
The reason I'm quiet is because there's so many. Okay, where do I start? Which one? I have a lot of internal dialogue constantly. It's just something that I live with. So my brain is always on overdrive, just thinking thoughts. And I mean, if I had to choose, what's the purpose, of life outside of like, yes, sure, find problems, fix problems, get ahead, all this. But really, this whole thing of why are we here? This whole Fermi's paradox, you start, wondering, okay, I don't believe we're alone in the universe. I just don't understand, like, why are we here then? Is what ultimately is the goal of it all. I mean, because on one hand, you have something like Buddha, and even in Vedanta, that everything is one. And you're like, well, if we came from the source and we are the source, and we're manifesting ourselves to experience ourselves, then why worry about anything, right? Because that means that you're experiencing what you need to experience, and that's a good thing. So good or bad, that is apparently what the universal consciousness wants to experience. So yeah, that probably is a common one. Also, like, am I doing enough? Is there something I'm overlooking in my development or my growth? Is there too much ego? Am I bringing too much ego to things I'll be working or talking, or even in this conversation, there's like this voice in the back going, and you're talking a lot about yourself. So I'm trying.
The podcast is about you, so obviously you can.
But you know what I mean. I mean, those things of the ego of like going through your daily life. Don't let your ego interfere. And wait a second, is my ego there to protect me, or how much is too much? How much is just enough? That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. What about you?
The kind of question I contemplate and I don't have answers. See, now you put me on a spot. I introspect about enlightenment quite a bit. I feel, can you be free of internal conflict, right? Like, can you be in a state where, there are problems, there are things that you need to solve, but you're free from suffering? And is it even possible to do? Like, I read up about people who have achieved that, but I do not know whether it is something that you can prescribe and follow or set steps and reach there, or is it like a occurrence? Is it a happening? And is it a moment of realization or is it a journey? Right. So
Yeah. Which way do you lean?
I think it's a journey. I feel it's a constant evolution of ideas and realizations. And
Yeah.
actually, the moment you are not aware is when you are out of touch. And the path to that is maybe staying aware and catching yourself losing awareness, maybe.
Do you ever think that being aware, though, makes the journey too long? Like sometimes I think like having that awareness, like right now, when you're like, for example, when you're working and the day just flies by,
Yeah.
there's something nice about that, right?
Yeah, you're consumed
Because
in something, like you're
yeah,
fully invested. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because if you're aware, like it's kind of like watching the clock tick and you're aware
Mm-hmm.
for every one of those seconds. It's
Oh, yeah,
painfully
yeah. In that,
long.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I
so
get
then your
you.
day becomes so long. And then you're like, is this how life is supposed to be? So like,
Yeah,
it's so long. And so in that respect, right? And so having that awareness, I feel like it's a double-edged sword because sometimes you want it and sometimes you want to lose yourself too.
yeah, yeah.
Because otherwise life is, if you really think about it, it's pretty long. I mean, for
Yeah,
many of us who are blessed, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
interesting.
that's a paradox, right? Like in the sense, like the example or which I read in one of the books is like you're watching a movie and you are
Mhm.
engulfed in the drama of the story, right? Like you are feeling all the emotions, the sadness, the joy, and everything.
Yeah.
And at one point, you're like fully feeling sad, deeply sad, because you're feeling for the character or the hero in the movie. And then you also have a visceral awareness telling that, hey, this is a movie. Like you this is just the
Yeah,
character, right? So
yeah.
that layer of awareness, which just tells you, hey, you know what? Don't get so lost in this, the scope of life and the drama, that you forget the fact that, hey, it's just a short life. Like just live it and enjoy, and like move on.
That's like the
Don't be
Bhagavad
so.
Gita. That's
Yeah, yeah,
essentially, I think, what Krishna was trying to tell Arjun. Right? Just
yeah.
pay attention to your dharma and let everything take care of itself.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I also like lean on the aspect of, like, okay, I want to just go in this journey. There's no destination that I can just flip a switch and I'm enlightened and living the best life after that. So it's not like that. So
Yeah, it is a journey. It's a journey to be embraced. That's for sure. I honestly, the older I get, I feel like there's no right or wrong answers. Yeah, I think it's everyone has their path, and as Christian says, you follow your path. Yeah.
okay, you broke my pattern of my rapid fire. I'm bringing back the focus. All right. You're writing a one-line user review of the human immune system. What does it say?
Thank you for taking care of me every moment of every day. One thing I realized when I was in the hospital is how many things are out there trying to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, really.
I don't think people realize when
Mm.
your immune system is less than that of a newborn baby, literally every single thing out there are bacteria that you've never heard of. Everything is trying to kill you. And your immune system was the only thing, was the barrier. And when it's gone, it's a party for them. And so you realize that and I have a new appreciation for it. The fact that
Mm.
every single day I can like pick up a spoon and not worry that it might have some bacteria that might kill me because my immune system is fighting it. And it's
Well
on
said.
automatic. We're not feeding it anything. We're not
Right.
doing anything special because we're clueless about it until now. But yeah, it's doing its job. It's just amazing.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I really like the way you put that. Uh, uh, what's a skill most people consider useless that you think is secretly very essential?
I was going to say a very essential skill is critical thinking, but I think most people would not call that useless. I would say being likable, not in the way of like, let me try to be likable, but like, not even like people pleasing. I mean, there are all these negative things that are coming into my head because that's how people
Like, no, so
think of
maybe
it. But
become an interface with other humans in such a way that you're easy to be with. Maybe something like that.
yeah, exactly. I think something like that. It's essentially like love people. It's such a
Mm-hmm.
simple thing, but love other people. That is it. Like, and I don't mean love as in like, go out and hug everybody. I mean, that would be nice if you could, and there are people who do, right? But I just mean like there's no need to dislike people for stupid things.
Yeah,
Like that person's different and likes to wear their jeans that way. That person likes to eat this or whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of things that people talk about of why they don't like people, and I never understand it. I'm like, we're on this little piece of rock flying through the cosmos, right? And like, you have better things to do, like love us, because if you think about it, like everything that we've endured, like our ancestors, to be where we are right at this moment. Just imagine they had to like win from dinosaurs or like win battles with animals trying to eat them. Then they had to fight battles with other tribes, and then they had to fight battles with famine and wars, and etc. They had to go through all that so that you, Manoj, could be there. I, Anjali, can sit here. And it's like, if there's somebody sitting next to me, same thing. We should be like buddies because, hey, we made it.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the last question. What is the most amount of money you've spent on something completely ridiculous?
Oh, boy. Where do I start? I've spent a lot of frivolous amounts of money. Of course, I'm guilty of shoes, liking shoes and bags and things. Probably food. I think that's probably the most. I think because I've grown up again in a immigrant household, and we tend to look at food as being something that shouldn't cost so much,
Yeah.
So like when you spend $600 on a 2 Michelin star or 3 Michelin star restaurant,
Yeah.
that probably is it. Because it's like, wow, it's not a rocket or something. It's just, it's like 4 leaves, and I'm pescatarian. So it's like, okay, yes, it's presented beautifully. Yes, it's a nice flavor, but $600 worth? No. So you're doing it for the experience, and I understand
Right.
that. And you do it once because you want to know, what is it really?
Yeah.
But after that point, then it becomes like, nah, no. What about you?
I think I would lean more towards technologies, maybe. I would invest in gadgets. Yeah, I think I would go buy the latest camera because I love photography.
That's not wasteful, though. You're producing something with it. That actually, to me, is noble.
Yeah, and like I may or may not produce, which is for public's viewing, but then it gives me great satisfaction when I indulge in it, and I feel also technology really helps me when I want to be efficient with something. So if I want to use something on a daily basis, I want it to be fast, and if something really slows it down for me, I feel it. I'm wasting my time too much. So I don't mind, like.
But that's
picking
not
something.
useless. That's not useless either. All the examples you're going actually put me to shame, because I feel ashamed that I have so much frivolous waste in my life. Whereas you're just saying like things that are actually useful.
No. I didn't. The question did not have useless in it. The question was, what is the most amount of money you spent on something completely ridiculous?
Yeah, I think to me, ridiculous means useless.
It's useless.
It does. It means useless because it's like so absurd.
Ridiculous in the eyes of maybe the people. Arey, yaar, tum is pe kharcha kar rahe ho. Like how can you spend money on that? So anyway, Anjali, it's been such a delight connecting with you, speaking with you, and hearing you share your thoughts. I don't know how it was for you today. How did you find the conversation?
No, thank you so much, Manoj. I mean, I'm actually really delighted by, so many of your questions, because it really got me thinking and I think digging deep. And I love your warmth. It was just so easy. I mean, I could do this for another few hours. It feels like I'm reconnecting with a friend. And so I hope we can continue this, even offline. But thank you so much. And also for asking such insightful questions that really, I think, touch to the core of how I see myself. What do I feel? How do I think about some of the most important parts of my life's journey so far? So that was really nice to share it with you. But thanks.
Thank you, Anjali. And where can people find more about you? What are your social handles? Where can people check out, and stay connected with you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, or sorry,
X.
Elon, X.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm on X, that girl Moxie, that girl underscore Moxie. Otherwise, 78 Health, that's my life, 78health.com. That really is, if you do info at 78 Health, you'll get me. Because we're a small company, so we all look at the inbox and doing that. I'm on LinkedIn also. So yeah, I mean, whatever, people have many different reasons for wanting to connect.
Yeah.
So whatever the reason is, especially when it comes to, I think, the healthcare journey, the cancer, there are no wrong questions, or even about faith. To be quite honest, I'm surprised at how many people are reluctant to ask me questions about my beliefs or my faith because they don't want me to be offended, or the fact that I am Indian, but I'm also American. What does that mean? Why is my accent this way? But why am I able to speak Hindi? Maybe Hindi me achik hu hai. Those type of things. And it's like, no, ask me. I'm not going to be offended. I'm not those people that are like, oh my God, why did you ask me that?
Oh, I think
so
I need to
anything.
do. I need to do a round 2 with you. There are so many unanswered questions now.
No, but you know what I mean, right? So if people have
Yeah,
any
yeah.
kind of question about anything, Vedanta, etc., just send them
Shoot.
over. I would love to
All
talk.
right. All right.
Yeah.
That's lovely. And cool. I'll put everything on the show notes and people can definitely check out your handles. And with that, yeah, let's conclude this one. Thank you so much, Anjali.
Yeah, namaste. Thank you so much.
All right. That was Anjali. Wasn't that incredible? And here's a surprise I promised you. During this conversation, I asked Anjali on an impulse if she would sing something, and she said, yeah, she sings. And then I said, would you mind singing something? And then she sang a few lines of Ajib Dastan. It's a famous old Hindi classic. Just a few seconds of her voice, and it was completely unrehearsed. But what came out? I'm so happy to share this. I actually took those few seconds, built a track around them, just the way like I do mixtapes. And now this track is out on Spotify. So go check it out. Link is on the show notes. It's called Dastan, and you're going to love it. And one more thing. I write a weekly newsletter called One Idea. Each issue is built around one idea. It's a very short newsletter which you can just finish by the time you're done with one coffee, but long enough to stay with you for the rest of the day because there are things that you can ponder over. So if this conversation made you think, you will definitely like it. Subscribe to One Idea newsletter. Link is in the show notes. That's it. Thanks for staying until the end, and until next time, see ya.